There is a quiet kind of strength the world does not always applaud, the kind that does not shout, does not chase, does not bend itself into shapes just to be seen. It is the strength of a soul that has learned, through storms and silence, that not every voice deserves an answer, and not every moment deserves your peace. You see, life will offer you chaos dressed as urgency, opinions disguised as truth, and people who will test the boundaries of your patience. But there comes a time, soft yet powerful, when you decide that your spirit is too sacred to be disturbed by every passing wind. And in that moment, you do not become distant, you become free. You begin to understand, slowly at first and then all at once, that your energy is a sacred currency. It is not meant to be spent on every raised voice, every careless opinion, or every fleeting conflict that knocks at your door. There was a time when you may have answered everything, every message, every insult, every misunderstanding, as if your worth depended on being heard. But life, in its quiet wisdom, teaches you otherwise. It shows you that exhaustion often comes not from what you carry, but from what you refuse to put down. There is a gentle discipline in choosing what deserves your attention. It is not indifference, no, it is awareness. It is the realization that not every battle is yours to fight, and not every storm is yours to calm. Some things arrive only to distract you, to pull you away from your purpose, to scatter your peace into places it does not belong. And when you learn to pause, to truly pause, you begin to see clearly. You see what nourishes you and what quietly drains you. And in that seeing, you reclaim your power. People will not always understand this change in you. They may call you distant or cold or unresponsive. But what they fail to see is that you are no longer reacting from a place of impulse. You are choosing from a place of intention. You are no longer giving pieces of yourself away just to keep the moment alive. Instead, you are protecting the parts of you that took time, pain, and growth to build. And there is nothing selfish about that. There is wisdom in knowing that your peace is not a public resource. It takes strength to walk away from what once pulled you in. It takes courage to remain silent when you once felt the need to speak. But in that silence, there is a quiet victory. You are no longer controlled by the noise around you. You are anchored within yourself, steady and sure, even when the world is not. And that kind of stillness, it does not come easily, but once found, it becomes your refuge. So you begin to choose differently. You choose calm over chaos, clarity over confusion, and peace over proving a point. You stop asking, how should I respond? And start asking, is this worth my energy? And in that simple question, your life begins to shift. Because not everything deserves your reaction, your time, or your heart. Some things deserve nothing more than your quiet release. And in learning to let them pass, you do not lose anything of value. You gain something far greater. You gain yourself. There is a freedom that does not announce itself with noise or celebration. A freedom that arrives quietly when you loosen your grip on the things you were never meant to hold so tightly. For so long, you may have believed that control was your safety, that if you could just manage every outcome, guide every reaction, and shape every opinion around you, then life would finally feel steady. But control, as it turns out, is a heavy burden disguised as protection. It asks you to carry what was never yours, to fix what was never broken by you, and to chase a certainty that life was never designed to give. Letting go is not giving up, and it is not weakness. It is a deep understanding that not everything requires your hands, your voice, or your worry. There are people who will choose their own paths regardless of your efforts, outcomes that will unfold in ways you could never predict, and opinions that will exist no matter how carefully you present yourself. And when you begin to accept this, not with resistance, but with grace, you feel something shift within you. A space opens up where tension once lived. It is in that space that peace begins to grow. You no longer feel the constant pull to correct, to convince, or to control. You allow people to be who they are without making it your responsibility to change them. You allow situations to unfold without forcing them into your preferred shape. And most importantly, you allow yourself to exist without the exhausting need to be understood by everyone. There is a quiet relief in realizing that you do not have to explain your worth to those who have already decided not to see it. Of course, letting go is not always easy. There are moments when your instincts will urge you to hold on tighter, to step in, to fix, to manage. But each time you resist that urge, each time you choose release over control, you strengthen something within yourself. You begin to trust life in a way you never have before. You begin to trust that what is meant for you will not require you to force it, and what is not meant for you will not stay, no matter how tightly you hold on. And in that trust, you find a different kind of power. Not the power that comes from controlling everything around you, but the power that comes from mastering what is within you. Your thoughts become calmer, your reactions more measured, your heart less burdened by what it cannot change. You stop carrying the weight of other people's choices, and you start walking lighter, freer, and more at ease within your own life. This is the freedom found in letting go. It is not loud, but it is life-changing. It is the moment you realize that peace was never in controlling the world around you. It was in releasing your need to. There will come a moment in your life when you realize that not every opinion deserves a seat at your table. For too long, you may have opened your doors wide, allowing the voices of others to echo louder than your own truth. You listened as they measured you against their expectations, as they defined you by their understanding, as they placed conditions on your value. And somewhere in that noise, it became easy to forget that your worth was never meant to be negotiated in the first place. Your worth is not something that rises and falls with approval. It does not shrink because someone fails to see it, nor does it grow because someone finally applauds it. It exists, steady and unshaken, whether it is recognized or not. And the sooner you begin to understand this, the less power you give to the passing judgments of others. Because the truth is, people will see you through the lens of their own experiences, their own fears, their own limitations. And if you are not careful, you will spend your life trying to fit into perspectives that were never designed to hold you. There is a quiet courage in standing firm within yourself, especially when the world around you is quick to question, to doubt, or to misunderstand. It is not about proving them wrong, nor is it about convincing them to see you differently. It is about knowing, deep within your spirit, that you do not need their agreement to be whole. You do not need their validation to be valuable. And you certainly do not need their permission to take up space in this world. This kind of self-respect changes the way you move through life. You stop over-explaining yourself to those who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop shrinking your voice to make others comfortable. You stop bending your boundaries just to keep the peace. Not because you have become hard, but because you have become clear. Clear about who you are, clear about what you deserve, and clear about what you will no longer tolerate. And yes, there will be moments when this clarity feels lonely, when standing in your truth means standing apart from the crowd. But even in that solitude, there is strength, because you are no longer abandoning yourself just to belong somewhere else. You are no longer trading your self-worth for temporary acceptance. Instead, you are choosing alignment over approval, authenticity over applause. The world may continue to speak, to judge, to form its endless opinions, but you are no longer required to answer every voice. You are no longer obligated to carry the weight of what others think of you. Because when you truly understand your worth, you no longer feel the need to defend it. You simply live it, quietly, confidently, and without apology. And in that quiet confidence, you become unbothered in a way that nothing external can disturb. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. There is a kind of noise that does not come from the outside world, but settles deep within you. The echo of harsh words, the replay of difficult moments, the restless hum of worry that refuses to be still. The world will always have its share of chaos. There will be voices that rise too loudly, situations that arrive uninvited, and moments that seem determined to shake your calm. But the true challenge is not in stopping the noise around you, it is in quieting the storm within you. Inner peace is not found in perfect conditions. It is not something that waits for life to become gentle or predictable. It is something you build breath by breath, thought by thought, even when everything around you feels uncertain. It begins with awareness, the simple, powerful act of noticing what you allow to linger in your mind. Because not every sound deserves an echo, and not every moment deserves to be carried forward. You begin to understand that your mind is a space that requires care. Just as you would not leave your door open for every stranger to walk in, you cannot leave your thoughts unguarded for every disturbance to settle. There is a quiet discipline in choosing what you entertain and what you release. When negativity knocks, you learn not to invite it in for a long stay. You acknowledge it, and then you let it pass, like a cloud that was never meant to stay in your sky. There is power in creating small moments of stillness, even in the middle of a busy, demanding life. It may be in the way you pause before responding, in the way you take a breath when tension rises, or in the way you choose silence instead of adding to the noise. These moments may seem small, but they begin to shape something greater within you. They remind you that peace is not something you find, it is something you practice. And as you practice, something begins to shift. The things that once unsettled you no longer have the same hold. The chaos may still exist, but it no longer enters you in the same way. You begin to observe without absorbing, to witness without becoming overwhelmed. You create a quiet space within yourself that remains untouched no matter what unfolds around you. This does not mean you become distant or disconnected. It means you become centered. You remain present, aware, and engaged, but not consumed. You learn that you can care without carrying everything, that you can listen without losing yourself, that you can move through the world without allowing it to disturb your inner balance. And in that balance, there is a profound kind of strength. A strength that does not depend on silence around you, but creates silence within you. A strength that allows you to stand in the middle of noise and still hear your own voice clearly. Because when you master that inner stillness, the world may continue to be loud, but you remain at peace. There is a moment, small yet powerful, that lives between what happens to you and how you choose to answer it. Most people rush past this moment without ever noticing it. They react quickly, instinctively, as if every word spoken to them demands an immediate reply, as if every situation must be met with equal force. But in truth, that space, that quiet pause, is where your power lives. It is where you decide whether you will be led by impulse or guided by intention. Reacting is easy. It asks nothing of you but speed. It is driven by emotion, often unfiltered and unchecked, rising quickly and leaving just as quickly, sometimes with consequences that linger far longer than the moment itself. A harsh word meets a harsher reply. Frustration turns into anger. A misunderstanding grows into conflict. And before you know it, you find yourself caught in something that never needed to be yours in the first place. But responding is different. It requires presence. It asks you to slow down, to listen not only to what is being said, but to what is being felt within you. It invites you to take a breath before you speak, to consider whether your words will bring clarity or add to confusion. In that pause, you give yourself the chance to choose something better than reaction. You choose awareness over impulse. There will be times when people expect you to react. They may even provoke you, testing your patience, pulling at your emotions, waiting for you to meet them at the same level of intensity. And there was a time when you might have done just that. But now, you begin to see it differently. You understand that not every action deserves a mirrored response. Sometimes the most powerful answer is calm. Sometimes it is silence. Sometimes it is simply walking away with your peace intact. This does not mean you suppress your emotions or pretend not to feel. Your feelings are valid and they deserve to be acknowledged, but they do not have to control you. You can feel anger without letting it speak for you. You can feel hurt without allowing it to shape your actions. There is a quiet strength in holding your emotions with care rather than letting them spill into every moment without direction. As you practice this, your responses begin to change. You speak with more clarity, less urgency. You choose words that reflect who you are, not just how you feel in a fleeting moment. You begin to notice that situations that once escalated quickly now lose their intensity, not because others have changed, but because you have. And in that change, you find something steady within yourself. You are no longer pulled in every direction by the emotions of others or the pressure of the moment. You stand grounded, aware, and in control of your own voice. The world may still react in haste, but you have learned the quiet art of responding. And in that art, you become unbothered in a way that is not passive, but powerful. Not silent out of fear, but still out of wisdom. There is a quiet kind of dignity that reveals itself when you no longer feel the need to engage with every small provocation that comes your way. Life, in its many forms, will always present you with situations that test your patience. Some will be loud and obvious, others subtle and disguised as harmless remarks or unnecessary conflict. But not everything that reaches you deserves to be carried by you, and not everything that is spoken in your direction deserves to be answered in the same tone. Pettiness often tries to pull you down to its level. It thrives on reaction, on emotional entanglement, on drawing you into spaces where clarity is lost and ego takes over. It invites you to prove yourself in moments where proving anything is unnecessary. And if you are not aware, you can find yourself caught in cycles that drain your energy without offering anything in return. That is why rising above it is not about silence alone. It is about awareness. It is about recognizing when something is too small to deserve the weight of your spirit. There is a deep strength in choosing not to participate in what does not align with your peace. It is not avoidance, and it is not weakness. It is a decision made from understanding, from knowing that your time, your attention, and your emotional energy are too valuable to be spent on every passing disturbance. You begin to realize that engaging with every conflict does not make you strong. It only makes you tired. True strength often looks like restraint, like stepping back when everything in you could step forward. As you grow into this understanding, your perspective begins to shift. You no longer feel the need to correct every misunderstanding or respond to every remark that does not reflect your truth. You learn that people will sometimes speak from their own frustrations, insecurities, or limited perceptions, and that responding to every one of those projections only pulls you away from your own center. So instead, you choose clarity over confusion, calm over reaction, and distance over entanglement. This does not mean you become indifferent to life. It means you become selective with your engagement. You start to value your inner peace more than the temporary satisfaction of being right. You begin to understand that dignity is not something you defend loudly. It is something you carry quietly. It is present in the way you walk away without needing to win the argument, in the way you remain steady even when others are not, in the way you refuse to let small things define your emotional landscape. And over time, something remarkable happens. The things that once disturbed you begin to lose their power. Situations that once felt urgent now feel small. Words that once stayed with you now pass through without attachment. You are still aware, still present, but no longer easily shaken. You begin to see that your peace is not fragile. It is protected by the choices you make every day. In rising above pettiness, you do not lose your voice. You refine it. You do not withdraw from life. You engage with it more wisely, and in that wisdom you discover a quiet grace that cannot be disturbed by noise, a grace that allows you to remain unbothered, not because nothing happens around you, but because nothing outside you is allowed to disturb what you have built within you. There comes a point in life when you begin to understand that love for yourself is not only expressed in how you treat your dreams, but also in what you refuse to tolerate. Boundaries are often misunderstood by others as distance, as rejection, or as coldness. But in truth, they are none of these things. They are quiet declarations that say, I value my peace enough to protect it, even if it means disappointing others who are used to having unlimited access to me. For a long time, you may have believed that being available at all times, saying yes when you meant no, or staying where you felt drained was a form of kindness. But over time, you begin to see the hidden cost of that kind of living. Every unspoken no becomes a weight you carry. Every overextended yes becomes a piece of yourself you slowly give away. And eventually you realize that without boundaries, even the kindest heart can become exhausted. There is nothing unkind about protecting your energy. There is nothing selfish about choosing rest over obligation, silence over unnecessary explanation, or distance over emotional depletion. Boundaries are not walls built to shut people out. They are lines drawn to keep you from losing yourself. They allow you to stay open without being exposed, compassionate without being consumed, present without being drained. At first, setting boundaries can feel uncomfortable. You may feel guilt for saying no, or fear that people will misunderstand your intentions. You might worry that love will be withdrawn if you stop overgiving. But with time, you begin to realize that the people who truly respect you will not be offended by your limits. They will understand that your peace is not negotiable, and your self-respect is not something you place on a table for others to rearrange. There is a quiet strength in learning to say, "This is not for me," without needing to justify it endlessly. There is power in not over-explaining your decisions, in not bending under pressure, in not feeling responsible for managing the emotions of everyone around you. You begin to understand that your role in life is not to keep everyone comfortable at your own expense. As your boundaries grow clearer, your life begins to feel lighter. The relationships that remain become more honest, more balanced, more respectful. You are no longer operating from obligation, but from choice. And in that choice, there is freedom. You no longer walk through life overextended and overwhelmed. Instead, you move with intention, knowing where you end and where others begin. And slowly, something within you settles. You stop apologizing for needing space. You stop feeling guilty for choosing yourself. You stop confusing self-sacrifice with self-worth. Because you finally understand that protecting your peace is not an act of separation. It is an act of love, a love that begins within you and quietly changes the way you allow the world to treat your spirit. There is a quiet shift that begins to take place when you finally stop reaching outward for what was always meant to be found within. For so long, you may have measured your worth through the eyes of others, through their approval, their applause, their recognition, their silence. You may have waited for someone to confirm what your heart already sensed, as if your value needed a witness in order to be real. And in doing so, you gave away pieces of your inner certainty, hoping they would be returned in the form of validation. But validation, as comforting as it may feel in the moment, is never a stable foundation. It rises and falls with opinion, with mood, with perspective. What is praised today may be ignored tomorrow. What is celebrated in one circle may be questioned in another. And if your sense of self is built upon such shifting ground, then peace becomes something you are always chasing, never fully resting in. That is the silent cost of living for approval. You are never entirely at ease within your own life. There comes a point, however, when exhaustion turns into awareness. You begin to notice how often you adjust yourself just to be accepted, How often you soften your truth just to be understood. How often you delay your own voice just to avoid disapproval. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, you begin to ask a different question. Not, do they see me? But do I see myself clearly when no one is looking? Healing the need for validation is not an instant transformation. It is a gradual returning, a returning to your own inner voice, the one that existed before it was drowned out by comparison and expectation. It is learning to sit with your choices without immediately seeking external confirmation that they are correct. It is learning to trust your own judgment, even when it is not immediately applauded. There is a certain discomfort at first in this process. Without constant external reassurance, you may feel exposed, uncertain, even a little unsteady. But that discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that you are stepping out of dependence and into self-trust. You are learning to stand on your own understanding rather than borrowed opinions. And slowly, something begins to change. You start to act not from the desire to be approved of, but from the clarity of what feels right to you. You speak more honestly, you choose more freely, you stop shaping yourself to fit expectations that were never truly aligned with who you are. And in doing so, you begin to feel a different kind of peace, one that does not depend on applause, agreement, or recognition. This peace is quieter but deeper. It does not demand attention. It simply exists within you, steady and unshaken. You no longer need to be constantly seen to feel real or constantly praised to feel worthy. You understand now that your value was never something that needed to be granted. It was something to be remembered. And in that remembering, you become unbothered, not because the world stopped speaking, but because you finally stop needing it to define you. There is a strength that does not announce itself. It does not arrive with noise, nor does it demand to be noticed. It exists in the quiet way a person remains steady when life tries to shake them, in the calm presence that does not collapse under pressure, and in the deep inner assurance that does not depend on external conditions to feel whole. This is the quiet power of an unshaken soul, and it is often overlooked in a world that mistakes loudness for strength. True strength is not found in how forcefully a person reacts, but in how gently they can remain composed when everything around them is pulling in different directions. It is easy to be strong when life is calm, when circumstances are favorable, when people are kind and situations are predictable. But the deeper form of strength reveals itself when things are uncertain, when words cut deeper than expected, when situations unfold in ways that challenge your peace. In those moments, an unshaken soul does not rush to react. It pauses, observes, and chooses stillness over chaos. There is something powerful in not being easily moved, not because you are disconnected, but because you are grounded. You begin to understand that not every emotional wave needs to pull you under, and not every external storm needs to become an internal one. Life may continue to shift, people may continue to change, and situations may continue to unfold without warning, but within you there remains a place that is steady, a place that does not bend with every opinion or break with every disappointment. This calmness is not something you inherit, it is something you develop. It is shaped through experience, through moments where you once reacted and later wished you had not, through situations that taught you the value of silence, and through encounters that showed you the cost of unnecessary emotional reactions. Slowly, you begin to learn that your energy is most powerful when it is not scattered, when it is directed with intention rather than consumed by impulse. And so you begin to move differently through the world. You listen more than you speak. You observe more than you react. You allow space between what happens and how you respond. In that space, clarity grows. And with clarity comes a deeper sense of control. Not control over others or outcomes, but control over yourself. There will still be moments that test you. moments where you feel the pull to react, to defend, to prove, to engage. But even then, something within you begins to remember that peace is not found in winning every exchange, but in preserving your inner balance. You realize that silence can sometimes speak louder than words, and calmness can often communicate more strength than confrontation ever could. An unshaken soul does not mean an untouched life. It means a life where storms may pass through, but do not take residence within. It is the understanding that you can feel deeply without being consumed, care fully without being drained, and exist fully without being disturbed. And in that understanding, you carry a strength that is not loud but lasting.